Miranda Rick.
And I'm Sarah Wheeler, and this is The Mother of It All, where we take on motherhood through the lens of culture and culture through the lens of motherhood.
Hello, Sarah.
Good morning.
Are
you proud of me? I woke up.
I'm so proud of you.
I got into my desk by 8:30.
That's amazing. I did as well.
Yeah, but I feel like you have a better relationship to the mornings than I do.
No, my husband is the morning captain, you will recall, but
Well, your kids get up earlier. Am I wrong?
Yeah, school starts at 7:55 for my older, but my daughter is still in there eating breakfast. And I was going to say that when I left, my husband was waking her up, and his new way of doing it, he's so much better at it than I am.
Lit cigarette. No.
He plays the song from Beauty and the Beast that's like, good day, hello,
Yeah, bonjour.
Yes.
No, now I'm doing Sound of Music. Or
no,
something.
I think that's the one.
The one where she's walking through the town and all the, and like that she goes, oh, isn't this amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
sorry,
that's
it's
how
not
he
for
wakes
me.
her.
It's for
this is
a 4-year-old.
He's so magical and fun, and like he thinks of these kinds of ways to wake them up, and I'm just like, it's time to get up, and then they don't do it, and then I'm like, no, you have to get up. I don't know what else to do. And then
wow, my mom used to sing a song to me in the morning. It didn't work. I think maybe I stereotype you as a morning person because you are always just like cleaner than I am.
I'm like type A.
And there's fewer things in your home, but those things don't necessarily go together. I think I'm making assumptions. I made an ass out of you of me, and I apologize, as my 8th grade history teacher used to say.
Well, I could go deeper, but I want to share our big announcement.
Oh yeah, we're getting married. We are finally leaving husbands for each other.
Yes.
I do want to do that someday. Like,
okay.
I have some friends, I have some friends where we have a plan. I don't, what's hard is like, will we ever be able to retire? But at some point, I don't know, 60s, 70s, we all leave our partners and we live in like co-housing together.
Yeah, I feel like there is, like, when I look into the future of being maybe 70s, 80s, like I see myself sitting on the porch with like my best friend.
Yeah.
And I don't care what else is happening. I mean, David can be there, but I don't mind if he's there.
You can come too. Just kind of stay out of the frame. I wish everyone happiness. It's not a negative image. Like, it's not an image that relies on other people being out of the picture or hurt or something. It's a positive one of like, I just want to be holding hands. I want to be like between my two sisters holding hands. And then, there's some kind of refreshing drink for eternity.
For sure. Yeah. Not sure what I'll be able to drink, when I'm that age, but.
It could be like iced tea, although caffeine will probably be hard on our 7-year-old brains.
Lemonade.
Okay.
It'll be lemonade. All right. So our news
out a little bit more, but in real life, very soon, we are doing our first. We wanted to do this for a long time. Live in-person recording of The Mother of It All. It's going to be in San Francisco on Friday, May 8th. It's part of a series that our local radio station, KALW, does called Bay Made, where they feature Bay Area podcasts. The Mother of It All is going to be featured on KALW, and you're going to be able to hear edited episodes every day on there for the week leading up to May 8th. And then on the 8th, we will be in person, live in San Francisco with poet Rachel Richardson. And I'm pumped.
Yeah, me too. It's our first live event, and I think it's going to be good. And details are still being worked out of like exactly what we're doing after, but we discussed a little get together of some sort.
There's going to be a bounce house.
Bouncy house. Or meeting at a bar.
That's the only way I know how to plan a party. We're going to get crunk.
So there's room for 80 people at the event, and we are waiting for a link. So if you want to come, we want you to come. we want to fill all of those 80 seats.
Yes.
And so we'll share links as soon as we have them to get your tickets. I don't know if is it free? Do we
No,
know?
no, it won't be free, but it
Not
won't
free.
be expensive, and it will benefit public arts.
There you
And
go.
yeah, we'll put that in. If you subscribe to our Substack,
Mhm.
you will get information about that event in your inbox. If you don't, go to Substack, Mother of It All,
Yeah.
and you will find that. Or we'll also put it on our Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll be
pretty
all over the
exciting.
place. Yeah.
All right. Without further ado,
Yeah.
I think we should roll.
Mhm.
You know why? I'm high off of that just finished a book feeling,
I'm so impressed. I almost emailed you like,
and I want to
"You read a
write
book,
it.
Sarah," and then I was like, "No, that's rude. Sarah reads books all the
I
time."
read a lot of books, but I don't
Me
always
too.
read books that have this many pages.
I know, and
Um,
nonfiction, right? Like,
and I want
it's
our listeners to know
nonfiction.
why. Or I do start them, but I usually don't finish them.
Is
I
this when we
finished the
hold it
shit
up?
out of this book. I didn't read the whole thing yesterday. I've been reading this book for weeks, and then I went across country, and it was like too
Here.
heavy to bring, and I was so
Sarah, hold it up.
sad.
Hold it up.
And then I got sick and I had like my dizziness, so I couldn't read. Like it made me nauseous to read. So my husband read some of this out loud to me. It
Oh,
has been, I think, apropos of the book's topic, a delightful journey. And I just had a fucking blast. And I'm feeling myself right now. So I want to introduce Julia Cooke and talk about this amazing book. Julia is here with us today. She is the author of The Other Side of Paradise, Life in the New Cuba, and Come Fly the World, the jet age story of the women of Pan Am. Her most recent book, the most recent book I finished, Starry and Restless, Three Women Who Changed Work, Writing, and the World, is out now and has been reviewed glowingly, not just by me, but by the likes of the folks at the New York Times and many others. Julia is a contributing editor at the Virginia Review Quarterly, and she comes to us from a small town in New England with hot pink headphones. Welcome to the podcast, Julia.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me.
We're so happy you're here. I wish every book that I finished the next morning I could talk to the author.
Man, I just love the story behind you finishing the book. That's just you're right. It is so perfect for the topical.
Yeah,
sni-
yeah. It was thrilling, really. Julia, who's caring for your kids right now?
My kids are at school. I have an almost 7-year-old and then 5-year-old twins. They just turned 5 in January. And so they are all at school, like full school days. It's a revelation. The more interesting question would have been who was caring for your kids yesterday while you did 36 hours in New York to do a book event. And that would be my husband, who is amazing and the kind of guy who like corrects people if they try to say that he's babysitting his kids or,
Yes.
oh, how are you going to? The one cliche thing is I got to pick up yesterday and my daughter's hair was in a French braid, and which is what I do because they've been having lice at school.
Oh, we got a lot of lice now too.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
been everywhere. And so I've been like, I have massive trauma about having had lice as a child. And so I French braid her hair obsessively in a way that I
Bless
never
you.
would have a year ago without lice. And so I showed up for school and I picked up her braid and I looked at the teacher and I said, "Did Patrick do this?" And she said, "Oh no, honey, I did."
No.
That's the single nod to the cliche.
You allowed yourself, yeah, like all people, men do, have some common drawbacks. But yeah, no, my husband too, like really gets pissed about the babysitting thing, or
It's horrible.
yeah, it's like offensive. He's like,
Deeply.
yo, I'm like a legit parent.
Yeah,
That's
I'm an
weird.
equal part of these children.
I wonder if like David has gotten that. I haven't heard about that. But,
Yeah,
like,
it's a
does
good
it come
poll.
from other moms? Does it
Mm.
come like who says it?
It mostly just, honestly, and this ties, we're going to go right back to Starry and Restless. And exactly, it ties right back into, I hear it most when I am traveling for work, when I have to go do a book event or do research or something. I don't do as much travel now as I used to, for very obvious reasons. But when I have to travel for work, Patrick definitely gets the, oh, who's babies? Or I get the, who's babysitting the kids while
Who's
you're
babysitting?
away?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Mhm.
they have 2 parents.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's not a big deal. I know it is one of those things though, too, where like when I talk about it with my husband, I mean, he does acknowledge that like, you know, not all men are the worst man, but
For
the worst
sure.
man harms all men. And like we hold that man in our, that this comes from like a legitimate place. And unfortunately, we all have to kind of like bear the burden of that. And
Absolutely.
sometimes I feel bad for them about that I'm just like, it has nothing to do with you that a bunch of dads like, continue to have very little, responsibility for their kids. And in another sense, kind of it does.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a fun tidbit about you, Julia, which is that, am I correct in saying that your mom was a food writer?
She was, yeah.
Like
Oh.
Miranda.
Oh,
It's true. True story.
yeah. It was a really interesting. I had a very weird upbringing because my dad worked
a lot of
when I
lice.
was really little. Oh yeah, lots of lice. Lots of lice.
No, that's normal.
I don't think that's weird. I think that's
it's
pretty
normal.
par for the course.
It's a particular trauma for curly-haired girls.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's ever harder to get out.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So besides the lice, sorry.
Besides the lice, no. My dad worked for an airline until I was 9, and then my mom was a food writer from when I was 9 on, and so I had like these very dominant like parents who kind of brought me into their experiences and of their work. Let's just say my parents' professions were very like present in my life when I was growing up. My mom was very pissed off eventually, not pissed off, I think disappointed at some point when I was like 22, and she brought me to go eat some food, and she was like pressing me to identify flavors in a dish or something, and and I was like, I don't know, Mom, it's just good. Like, can I just eat my food? And she was so chagrined. She was like, I raised you. You could have been perfect at this. You could have been so good at this. You're such a good writer. You are like,
it's the job of every child to do something like right. To be like, I'll just eat Soylent. I don't really care. I just want calories. Yeah. You're just doing your job.
What's her name?
She's Joan Cirillo.
Okay. Great name.
Yeah, she wrote The Idiot's Guide to Cooking with Kids.
Oh, that's amazing.
My daughter yesterday decided she's going to be a vegetarian. So
I did that when I was 9.
Yeah.
Still doing it.
Yeah.
It's a good move.
I forgot you were in our, like we talk about, like this book, woman heroes, or like, this woman broke the mold. I was trying to think of like other vegetarians, to inspire her because she's very on this trip. Okay.
Cool.
We already have like a lot of threads
Paul
to pull
McCartney?
into talking about your book. Oh, you're so
Brian
right, Miranda.
Eno has that whole, have you read
go.
in Brian Eno's memoir, he talks about how difficult it is once you have children to justify the eating of animals to children. That like when your kids are challenging you to explain, like, why do we do this?
It's like a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
like
interesting. I find that that's not, and I find that living in the country, like my kids have a very different relationship to eating animals than I did, because we're amid farms. They actively, they get the eggs from chickens.
Yeah.
And they have relationships with the farmers who grow the vegetables, who care for the cows, whatever. And so it feels less fraught to them in a way. But
that's interesting.
It's complicated. I mean, we still eat cheese,
way.
and I haven't
totally
explained that to the children yet, like how they get the cheese and
You
how
haven't
many
had the
animals
cheese
are
talk?
killed to make the cheese. But we're imperfect, but we're doing
That's
our best.
hilarious. Well, even in a city, my daughter said she's like, I'm friends with Henrik's chickens, her friend's chickens, and so I just can't justify eating them.
We'll tell her she's
Julia,
in good company.
Okay, your book, this wonderful book, tells the true story of 3 women journalists working in and around the Second World War. And thank you, by the way, for writing the first book that I was interested in about a war.
amazing.
And also
I love to hear that. I love it.
That's like the meta of this book, that it's like you also, in talking about how they wrote differently, you also managed to write a book that I give a shit about World War II. I was like, oh my God, maybe war is interesting. So, ostensibly this book is about the impact that, these women had on the way we think, read, and write about world affairs. But it's also a story about how these women navigated their relationships to work, to art, to adventure, and intellectualism, within the confines of society's expectations of women. Notice I don't say within being a woman, right? That shouldn't be a conflict, but within the conflict of, the gaze of other people on women, right? Like what we expect of daughters, wives, and mothers. So tell us a little bit about these three women, Mickey, Martha, and Rebecca, and what makes them so interesting to you.
Yeah. So the three, Mickey, Martha, and Rebecca. Rebecca West was a British novelist, critic, and reporter. She was a socialist suffragette in her youth. She became most famous professionally for her hybrid travel work on Yugoslavia called Black Lemon, Grey Falcon, and then her reporting on post-war trials at Nuremberg and elsewhere for The New Yorker. She was also really famous. One of the quotes about her that is kind of appalling is that she's in some circles most famous for being like a bit player in the British literati soap opera of romance and love, because she was H.G. Wells's mistress for a decade and had a baby with him out of wedlock, and it was a whole big scandal. And then but her work really it's tragic that some people remember her primarily for that fact, and not her incredible work. She was on the cover of Time magazine. President Truman gave her an award and called her the world's best reporter. So she was not an unlauded writer. Then there's
Yeah.
Emily
She's a
Mickey
dame.
Hahn. She's a dame. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
she was wildly famous, and as all of them were, which was for me a revelation. Like I had no idea of the degree of their fame, and it
'cause
makes it
it's
ever
been
more
kinda washed
appalling.
away.
It's been just kind of subsumed, right? It's just been kind of like, yeah, under the stories of the men who claimed the innovations that these women actually, it was not a new story, right?
Right.
But to me, the revelation was like the degree to which they were famous in their era. So that's Rebecca West. Then there's Emily Mickey Hahn. She is a contrarian from St. Louis. She did lots of fascinating things in her life just because people said she shouldn't or couldn't. She was the New Yorker's China Coast correspondent from 1937 to 1941. She is best known for her memoir of her years in China, which is called China to Me. She stayed in Hong Kong under Japanese occupation in order to keep her baby daddy alive. He was the head of the British intelligence services in Hong Kong, and he was wounded in the Battle of Hong Kong, and then kept as a POW in the camp. And so she did not she chose not to be repatriated with the rest of the Americans. I mean, her life is like a huge morass. I can just go, it's fascinating. By morass, I mean like it is one hit after another. It's just at every turn she's doing something wild and incredible and unexpected and daring. And so that was, for me, my primary challenge as a writer was imposing a sense of hierarchy to those really wild and fascinating things that she was doing. So that's Mickey. And then there's Martha Gellhorn, who is best known, appallingly, for her 5-year marriage to Ernest Hemingway. She was a travel writer, journalist, and novelist. She was also from St. Louis, and she was a real pioneer of like the incisive, first-person, inclusive war reporting. There's a reason why this is like the first book that you've been into about World War II, which I love to hear. And it's because like these women brought a totally different vision to what war was, right? Like men reporters largely saw war as a matter of soldiers and munitions and troop movements and like kind of the official story. And these women in particular, and Martha in super particular, really, got to a war and were like, okay, but like, how are people eating? And, when they sleep at night, how does that happen? And what is the consequence of these homes that are being rendered rubble? Like, where are these people going to go? And what was in this home, right? Like, what is the symbolic meaning on a cultural level of this China that's been rendered rubble all over the floor? So she's able to like draw war into both what led to it and what it would result in. A battle is never only what it is in that moment. It's the people being killed. It's what led to it. It's what will be after it. It's the foodways that are being impacted by the battle that's happening, and like how many people are going to go hungry because of X, Y, Z. Like it's everything else. So that was her enormous contribution.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was interesting. Something that I did not anticipate about this book was how akin I felt to these women and the other characters in it living through this like incredibly tumultuous time before, during, and after the Second World War. And like, given how disorienting it feels to be a mother in 2026, there was something comforting about watching these women, like with the incredible level of detail you provided, hold, and hierarchy, and organization. Thank you for doing that work for us. Like, hold both the minutia, like of everybody's lives, but also their own, like decorating at home and squabbling with editors, and the life threatening. I mean, they're literally dodging bombs, searching for food, together, and hold those things at once. And I do think, when I think about stories that are interesting to me, I I often just get like confused about things that I will make a huge generalization right now. Many men find interesting, you know, even like right now with, the, I don't even, would we call it a war in Iran, the invasion of Iran, the attack on Iran, like the fact that we just keep talking about gas prices is
Totally.
making me completely insane. I'm like, I not only do I find this like dehumanizing and kind of like just depressingly capitalist, but also I'm like, what? It's boring. I don't want to keep talking about gas prices. What's going on?
And it's really disorienting too, because it's like it's talking over the reality of what's happening in a really like it's anticipating what
Yes.
you want to hear, and that's not what you want to hear. So you're like, why is that? Why is that going over the head of what I actually want? What I want to know.
Right.
So it's fundamentally disorienting. Yeah, I found writing this book to be enormously useful to me in the right now. Like I had no idea. I began this book the idea for this book happened in 2018. And so it was a really long, and I was working on it on and off for years and really focused on it in, the first couple of years of my children's lives.
I was gonna say, like,
Yeah.
were you doing the math? I'm like, wait, so were you like pregnant and then you had
No, it's
one and then twins and you're doing this book? Like, wow. I'm
yeah.
always interested in the how. And it just seems really fascinating to be reading about like these wild and inspiring lives while you are about as like penned in as you possibly could be by like
It's true.
the arrival of 3 children.
I was deeply penned in, and
Yeah.
you're right. It's interesting. I've been asked about that. I was asked about that at an event that I did on Monday. Like, on a logistical level, how did I do that? And, the reality is that like we had help for the first couple of years of my children's lives. And so there's never been a week when I haven't had some time to work,
Right.
like on
And
a
your husband
logistical level.
babysits
And my
from time
husband
to time.
babysits.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness.
No, and
Yeah.
I have a wonderful husband who's very, very involved. But it really is just a matter of compulsion for me. Like for me, these women were very much a lifeline between who I felt like I was before I had children, which was this, I had built this career around international reporting. And, it was culture reporting and it was freelance. So it's not like I was being sent out on assignment to do hard news from war zones. This is not that kind of career. But it was a reporting that was built around an exterior gaze, shall we say, like an attunement to like things that were not in my backyard. And that would have required me to travel a fair amount. And the reason why I started thinking about these women was that I wanted to have kids. I've always known that I wanted to have kids. It's never been a doubt for me. And I was thinking, okay, so how can I make this work? Like as I was getting closer to actually having of the children, my brain was starting to think like, no, this is fundamentally incompatible. Or is it? Or could it not be? Who could I possibly look at to tell me whether it is? Like, what are the
like
costs?
Momo looking for a vegetarian? Like,
Yes, exactly.
Your
Like,
vegetarian idol, Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, she doesn't give a shit about.
Well,
I
and
know,
to me,
I know.
But Miranda Rake, she cares about.
I'll try to think of a cool vegetarian.
Well, and there are reasons why that would be, right? Like Paul McCartney's life can tell her very little about her own, right?
Yeah.
Like, and Miranda's life might be able to tell her something about her own.
That's so true.
And so, that's
wise.
how I felt when I discovered, like, I wrote a book review for VQR, Virginia Quarterly Review, that kind of initially put Martha Gellhorn and Rebecca West in conversation with each other in my mind. And I realized that they had been engaged in the same kind of, like, global literary journalism and kind of that exterior gaze, the always
Mhm.
wanting to go to someplace else to write something interesting,
Yeah.
which was what I felt. And so that sent me into the archives and into like the history books and the anthologies to kind of think about who else was there. And I was floored, just completely floored, to find out that there actually had been this enormous cohort of women heading out into the world in the 20s and 30s
Mhm.
to report on it. Like so many that if you go onto the Harper's website, this is just one example, but if you go onto the Harper's website, they have archives. And if you literally look at any year, like in the late 20s or early 30s, any issue is probably going to have one essay or reported piece or personal essay article by a woman from someplace far away. These
Mhm.
women were just
Mm.
heading out there, buying tickets, and largely it was women of some kind of privilege,
Yeah.
some amount of means, but sometimes diplomats' wives were starting to write,
Hmm.
and there it wasn't always the privileged or the white. There's Juanita Harrison who jumped on the story in Restless is populated. It focuses on these three women who were really like the best at what they did, and did an incredible uh, canon shifting, like paradigm shifting amount of work. But
Mhm.
all around them, there were tons and tons of like, I don't want to call them minor figures because that's not what they are. I don't want to classify them like that. They're fascinating in their own right. But just women who were like out there doing similar things, lifting that work into the public eye
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
with
just
their own
that
writing.
naming is wild and impactful. I mean, I I don't doubt that you were amazed to kind of do this research and find this. And it's powerful and it's also kind of sad, right? It's like
Horrifying.
depressing. It's depressing to be like the story that we've been told is like now women can do anything, but like before they couldn't, and like so history kind of just belongs to men. And anytime that we kind of identify a woman or a person of color from history, we're kind of like doing affirmative action, right? We're like stretching a little bit to be like, well, the great
Totally.
people were the white men, but like, look, this
They
person,
also did it.
they also did it, right? It's kind of
Exactly.
and it makes me think of that kind of tired and false hiring argument about like, well, we would hire more women if there were more qualified applicants, or we would hire more people of color if there were more qualified applicants. And it's like, no, you're just not looking for them. Like that exists. Like black talent exists, women's talent existed. And not only did it exist, but I think the creepiest part is it was actually in the culture.
It
Like
was
somebody from that time did know who that was, and it was intentionally erased or relegated.
For my book launch, the launch of this book was with Jeff Charlotte, who's a wonderful creative nonfiction writer and journalist, and he really, I think, hit the nose on the head. And like his way of framing it was that men in that era, in particular, were often writing toward what they believed or hoped, or what other people were telling them was, or what they hoped would be.
Hmm.
And men and women, in contrast, in that era, were often writing about what their bodies were experiencing, right? Like what people needed, what they were seeing on the ground in these different
Yeah.
places, because they had to get there in order to be like the best way to get a byline in a magazine was to go someplace on your own dime and send a story back, right? And so once they'd gotten there, they saw what was happening, right? And they were like, because they were denied access to these official briefing
Right,
rooms,
right.
they had to find a different kind of story. And in finding
Mm-hmm.
that story, they often found what was, not what they hoped would be, not what they believed might be happening, and not what
Right.
other men were telling them was happening. And
Right,
then
or the silly story that's kind of happening on the front lines. Like what I think Martha
exactly,
Gellhorn describes it as, it looks like college kids, at a
totally.
frat party or something.
And then
Um,
and this is what's essential that I think Jeff pointed out, that I think is really important, that like that then when they did get it right, the subsequent generations of men would then go back and blame that rightness, that kind of sense of destabilization that comes from the women getting it right, the men getting it wrong, on the very gendered position that had in fact allowed them to see much more.
like
It's just
This
a
is
women's story.
it's a woman's
They were just
story.
covering the women's
Mm.
angle,
Mhm,
you know?
and we can dismiss it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I wanna talk a little bit about motherhood and these women. I will give a bit of a spoiler, which is that they do all become mothers. I mean, that it was a twist to me, but I think if you're listening to this podcast, you gotta know.
Probably
Um,
not.
and I was surprised by how much of their ambivalence around motherhood felt highly contemporary. For example, I don't think we've moved much as a society in the last 100 years around our judgment of women who spend weeks or even months away from their children for work or pleasure, like Martha Gellhorn did. So when you think about modern motherhood, what in these stories feels most alive to you?
Mm. You know, to me, the aliveness of their stories really lives in their embrace of certain aspects of the role of motherhood and really their surprise at or resentment toward or resistance against other aspects of the role, some of which I think is perennial. You know, there are always going to be aspects of motherhood, which is such an all-encompassing thing. And also, it is both at the same time so all-encompassing and also so gendered and fraught and with all of these societal impositions of what should be, which does not have to be, right? So like both of these things are happening at the same time.
Right, there's kind
Um,
of like the pure natural experience, not I don't mean like
yeah,
I don't mean like breastfeeding and,
no,
attachment parenting. I mean like the thing that would happen anywhere. And then there's the cocoon of society around it. And they
exactly.
can be hard to
And
tease apart. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that what felt really fresh and fascinating to me about their experiences of motherhood was how willing they were to interrogate that, to accept the former, and that sense of devotion, and how verbal they were about that. Like they all wrote really beautifully about their devotion to their children.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and at the same time, they all had really complicated relationships with their children at different periods of their children's lives because they were choosing other things over motherhood.
Right. And
Um,
they were considered in some circles bad mothers. Like, and
for
even in
sure.
Rebecca West's case, I mean, her son basically published a novelized version of his childhood that the headline was she was a bad mom.
Horrible,
Right.
horrible, horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, it's interesting because I I feel like for me personally, writing about them really let me accept my devotion to my children in a way that I had not, that
Hmm.
I think I needed help to do that. In a way, I felt, I, I feel more at home now with the idea of not doing as much or traveling as much or pushing those bonds
Mhm.
for a period of time, right? That
Why is that, Julia? What about their stories made you feel like you could accept that more?
I think that their stories really showed me that lives are long and that careers
Yeah.
are really mutable, that you can
Hmm.
move, you you don't have to get pigeonholed, right? Like I don't have to be someone who stays at home more, who doesn't travel as much. Like if I choose not to travel as much or not to do as many long form reported pieces from far away for a couple of years, that doesn't mean I can't come back to it.
Right.
And so to kind of approach my career or my writing life with like that kind of expansiveness versus the scarcity mindset of like, oh no, I gotta go, I gotta get on it, I gotta, if I'm not doing this,
Hmm.
someone else will, and then I'm gonna get boxed out. Like there's that story is so old and tired, and
Yeah.
it's still
And I
true
think
in many
women,
realms.
like, don't you think women feel that more? Like the sense of,
Definitively,
yeah, that there's not enough for all of us. Yeah, and that if
totally.
we, at the second we step out of the way, someone's gonna take it, and we're never gonna get it back.
For sure.
Uh,
And I think there are structural like yeah, that is true in many
Mhm.
fields, right? Like there is capitalism, you know, blah. It's
Capitalism, blah.
There's our
You got
headline.
it. You nailed it. Yeah, no, I mean there's
Yeah.
like data points about like, what women
exactly.
Mhm.
lose when they step out of the
Mhm.
workforce. Like we're not making it up.
No, and
But
it makes sense to have that perspective in a lot of ways. And
right.
so I come at this from a position of immense privilege to be able to say that I can
Yeah.
find that flexibility, right? Um,
Mhm.
I'm just saying that I don't think that I would have wanted to find that flexibility 8 years ago before living with these women's lives and choices.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you talk about, how they write about their devotion to their kids, and I found that beautiful. And I also really, it felt so meaningful to me the way that they wrote to others and to each other, because they did, they all had relationships with one another eventually, about, what was difficult or interesting about motherhood. To hear women like with this level of descriptive accuracy tackle motherhood was so moving. One of my favorite quotes was, Rebecca West, and I think she might have been writing to one of the other women, but you could refresh my memory, who said, "Motherhood is the strangest thing. It can be like being one's own Trojan horse."
It was not to any of the women in the book, but it was to another woman who also had children. And, all of them, they were really
Mm,
straining to find those relationships of that might reflect their own interpretation of motherhood back to them. And interestingly, I think Rebecca West and Mickey Hahn were able to find that with each other, really only with each other.
right.
And Rebecca West had it to some extent with Dorothy Thompson, who's another whatever. But I came to the conclusion that Rebecca West and Mickey Hahn, because they shared their restlessness, their
Yeah,
ambition, these like laudable, wonderful careers. I talked about how famous Rebecca West was, but Mickey Hahn was also wildly famous.
yeah,
Her memoir of China sold almost 700,000 copies. There were spreads about her in Life magazine. Like she was insanely famous. So these two women who were contending with like a public legacy, and they were in-demand writers. They had deadlines to meet. They also were the primary wage earners for their families.
yeah.
And so they could talk about being mothers with each other in a way that very, very few women could when they would refer to an experience that they had with their children. Only they could understand it, really,
Right,
which
right.
I found really, really compelling.
Yeah, it seemed to be, they had some of them had some relationships with other women that part of why they deteriorated was that kind of gap between their experience of motherhood, with them and their friends. And, to a much lesser extent, I can relate to that, and some of that, Miranda and I talk a lot about kind of how we misplace our shame and self-judgment around our own motherhood on other women.
Mm.
And I think some of that can come out, right? That like the way that other women mother that we've decided is better or different than us can feel like an attack, uncomfortable, and an
Hmm.
attack on ourselves, and something we want to move away from. And there's something very real about like, uh, I just, it's hard to relate to other mothers who aren't itching to move to another country,
It is.
Yeah, or who don't have this relationship to work and craft. And I did think a lot about this theme of kind of physical escape and reinvention and rediscovery. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit in your own experience of early motherhood. But I relate to it deeply as a person. I've written about it. Like I wrote a piece for The Cut a couple years ago, about kind of moms trying to find bigger ways to, be unbridled. And it was
Mm.
really interesting to hear people's stories about that. I was wondering if you had thoughts about, why we're not all going to be international journalists, though I would love to. I read this book and was like, please let me have another life. But why do we relegate mothers to like spa vacations when what they really need is maybe like a month living in, Shanghai with a pet gibbon like Mickey Hahn?
Okay, so I'm so glad that you raised this, and it kind of sends me,
Two
I'm gonna go a
gibbons,
little bit,
excuse me.
yeah, exactly. Don't forget the other one. But I only know the name of one of them anyway. It was Mr. Mills. But anyway, the point, I'm going to go on like a bit of a tangent here because researching this book, at first the restlessness thread was much more prominent at the beginning of writing it. And, the book kind of became much more about motherhood over the course of me becoming a mother. Like I had
Mm.
3 babies in the span of 19 months. It was
Jeez.
bananas. It was really crazy for a while.
When you say it like that.
Yeah, it was not the plan. And it's like the greatest blessing because I always wanted 3 kids, but I hated being pregnant. So, it's all
Yeah,
worked out
two for
fantastically.
one.
I know,
Yeah.
it's wonderful. But it
Yeah.
was really a paradigm shifting experience, of course.
Yeah.
And so the book, the Restless, the point is that I had done all of this research about female restlessness. That was the fundamental crux of this book when I sold it. Was it was two things. It was about new journalism and the notion that these women innovated in journalism in ways that they've never been given
Yeah.
credit for. Okay, but it was also about restlessness and this idea that intellectual restlessness, not wanderlust as like we want to see it in women, right? That like, it's this emotional need. You need to go like get some time for yourself. Like mama
Right. Stella got her
needs a
groove
spa
back.
day. Yeah, exactly. Like eat, pray, love, blah, blah, blah. That no, it can be a really intellectual, ambitious, productive, community driven, I want to do something constructive for the world. And this is the best way to do it, right? For me, that my restlessness comes from a very different place. And that, it's easier to like relegate female restlessness to this place of like emotional need, which is seen as much more feminine
Right.
than,
And
a place of,
selfish.
yeah, exactly. Than a place of, constructive, ambitious, that it pushes us toward these really uncomfortable conversations about female autonomy, and what is masculine and what is feminine. I also think that the research that I did about, female restlessness, it brought me into how fundamentally subversive a woman who roams is, to much of the canon of like Western thought, right? Like if you think about the so many of the stories that we tell in, the canon of Western philosophy, science, religion, a lot of it is based on a man journeying and a woman staying at home.
Yep.
And so I think that also pushes us into thinking about the brutality of the home front. The fact that, like, in another one of the events that I did, the wonderful Nina McLaughlin, who's a fantastic writer, she wrote Wake Siren and Hammerhead. She pointed
good to
out
know.
that on a statistical level, women are less safe in their own homes here in the U.S., where they're more likely to be murdered by an intimate partner than they are to be killed while traveling in any number, almost anywhere. So like all of these places that we in the West like to think about as being so dangerous for women, don't travel alone, don't wear a short skirt, like whatever, you are statistically safer while engaging in solo travel in any number of places than you are in your own home.
I don't
And
know if that's like the most disturbing or the most like exciting thing.
it's
Factoid I've
it's just
heard. It's
so
both.
destabilizing
It's destabilizing.
for like
Right.
the big stories that undergird the way that women are expected to move and exist in American society in particular. And so that to me, I know this is like a huge roundabout way of answering.
No, it's all connected.
Not quite the question that you asked, but it gets there.
Yeah, right. And then if we kind of layer motherhood on there, I mean, it was so radical and uncomfortable, I think, to read the passages about like, some of these women like sending their kids to boarding school and going to Spain or whatever for 6 weeks and it's not like they didn't have ambivalence about that.
They had ambivalence about it. And you know what? Reading those passages is kind of what also made me feel so grateful for my husband, because like part of why I get to not make choices like that is that I have an equal partner, right?
Right.
Like I have a really hard time talking about this aspect of their lives, because I could never send my kid to a boarding school at age 3, which is what Rebecca West did.
Yeah, and she regretted it. Like,
and she
also was like, yeah, that was probably not a good call.
And also, and then there's the fact that World War I she was actively being bombed. Like there was the element of like physical safety that was very present in her mind.
Right,
and so like it's easy to condemn sending your kid to boarding school at age 3, and it's easy for her to look back on that and say like, I shouldn't have done that, which is true. But at the same time, like, there were bombs falling like outside her door. So it's not like that choice was an uncomplicated one. So it's hard for me. Like, I can't look at their choices and fall on like, yes, I would do that, or no, I wouldn't do that. Like, it's really hard for me to do that, because there's so many conditions that are just profoundly unshared. But primary among them is that like I have a man in my life who is deeply domestically capable. And that just is a huge, none of them, not one of these women ever had anything resembling that
Yeah, 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 and a lot of women don't. And like, I mean, certainly my version of that has given me I'm a huge like I get a lot out of travel in on all levels, like emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. It's kind of like the thing that I live for. And that kind of gives me life. Like if you stop me any day and are like, what, you get to do whatever you want for the next 3 days, it would be just like be around a major city by myself.
I know for me, it's
Um,
like if someone's like, if I gave you this amount of money and a free week or like free time, something to do, what would you, I could not tell you what kind of clothes I would like to buy, but I
yeah.
could tell you exactly where I want to go.
Yeah, I
Like,
do want to have the right I do want to have the right clothes for the occasion, but it's it's all part of it. It's all part of it. And I was thinking about this book that I've always wanted to read, well, since it came out, that Flanneuse,
hmm
Women Walk the City
Mm.
by Lauren Elkin. It at least, what I've seen about it kind of maps onto some of those themes. But yes, my partner being who he is means that I have done stuff like that,
hmm
and I could say, I got to get out of here, and I do, and I need 3 days in New York and go do that. Now the kind of the volume of that and the length of it that it kind of happens in this book, as well as kind of the intellectualism and
hmm
craft, like going somewhere and writing a book just sounds unbelievable, to
It
me.
is, and it was, and like yeah, no, I know it's amazing.
Well, we've got to wrap up. I just cannot recommend this book enough. You've mentioned offline that people have been doing book clubs on it.
Yes,
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
yeah, I'm I love book clubs. I think that book clubs, I feel very strongly that these women, I was going to say this, that when we were talking about another topic that, but when Trump sent out those horrific tweets last week and about the global civilization, I like went on a huge,
Yeah.
I had a really hard time. And when I think about what lifted me out of it or what kept me, one foot in
Mm.
front of the other, it was frankly the details from this book, the constructive, the way that these women really brought caregiving and constructive action to movement through a time of enormous chaos. So I really think,
Yeah. Well
um,
said.
yeah, like I could not have foreseen where we would be right now when I was writing this book, but I'm so grateful to have these women very close to me in this current time. And my dream for it is that book clubs of women read it and understand and take their own details from it, right? Like I can say what speaks to me. I think all the time about Rebecca West's compote that she made while in the way that she cared for the refugees that she housed at her Grand Country estate in England during World War II. That's fine. That's what speaks to me.
Yeah.
But there are
Yeah.
so many
Me
different
too.
details that are going to speak to different kinds of readers, and nothing in the world would please me more than book clubs adopting this book and figuring out what details speak to them. And yeah, if you do choose it for a book, reach out to me. I love book clubs. I'm totally happy to zoom in, pop in to answer questions.
Ooh, exciting.
I
Okay, and
have my
people.
book club tonight, and so I'm gonna mention
Oh,
it. I
where
Yes.
is it?
it's a little bigger than we normally take on, but if we, like, stagger our meetings a little bit, I think
You're
it'll be good.
usually just like a hockey romance, purely pucking around.
I mean,
Um,
literally, like, lengthwise. I
And
think we
no, and let me tell you, this book was supposed to be so much shorter. I wanted it to be shorter. I like shorter books, and when I handed it into my editor, I had promised under 100,000 words, and this is like 120, and I was like, "Can you please cut 20,000 words out of this?" And she was like, "I don't want to though.
yeah.
Like I don't,
No,
I don't
I
want to."
wouldn't either. And I usually think people go on too long. And no, I cannot stress what a like breeze of a read this is, and
Well,
how
yeah.
delightful. I mean, your writing is just really delightful.
Thank you.
Do you have any culture recommendations
Yeah, what are
Yeah.
you reading
for our listeners?
now?
Yeah, what
Well,
other?
okay, it's going to sound like inside baseball a little bit because the two books that I'm reading right now are books that my editor also is editing. So they're books that are forthcoming from FSG.
Yeah, give us the
But they're what I'm
preview.
reading right now. And they're so good. Megan O'Grady's, I don't know what happened there.
Were there balloons?
For anybody who's not seeing the video, multicolored balloons just flew through Julia's screen.
I don't know
it your
why.
About
birthday?
forthcoming
I think I must have
publications.
done like a hand gesture. I'm constantly talking with my hands. Sorry.
Now I'm like,
That has never
how do
happened
I make
on the show. I don't know how to do it, and I use a lot of hand gestures. So something magical is
I
happening.
know, right?
Now, tell
Was
us
I
about
pointing?
tell us the
these
books.
books.
The books are so Megan O'Grady's forthcoming book. It's out, I think, a week from Tuesday. No, this
Ooh.
coming Tuesday. So it'll be out by the time this airs, probably. It's called How It Feels to Be Alive. It's a series. It's an examination, a series of interlocking kind of examinations about art in life. It's
Oh.
beautiful. It's really
Yeah.
wonderfully done. And it's like, yeah. And then the other book is Queen Mab. It's not out until August, by Emily McBride. And it's a book about a woman who is a Victorianist. She's a PhD student. She's 23. She gets pregnant, has a baby, and becomes convinced that her baby is a changeling and has been stolen by the fairies at birth. And so it's a story of, essentially postpartum psychosis, but it's not dire in the way that so many of these stories that are about the postpartum experience and like a woman having
the
a hard
push
time.
and- yeah.
Like it's just like the newborn phase. It's so dark and gritty and dire, and like you're isolated, and it's and it's not like that at all. I'm not gonna go more into it because that would give away something. But like it's just really lovely. It has this really it's a beautiful book.
That is
called Queen Mab.
right up our alley.
Queen Mab.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, and I've been listening to the new Gorillaz album a lot.
They're
is
on
really good.
tour. My
It's so
son
good.
plays guitar, and he can play what is it? Clint Eastwood, the one that goes dun dun dun. Dun. Oh, Feel Good. He
Yeah.
can play Feel Good, and so he wants to go see Gorillaz. They're coming here. Yeah. So the new album's good.
Really good. Love it.
Ooh, all right, that's
Yeah.
good. There's a lot of good new music.
I know there really is.
Yeah, I'm all the new Harry Styles album all the time.
Oh.
I can't get enough.
Awesome.
But I'll add Gorillaz to that. Well, thank you, Julia, so much for your time.
Thank you,
And
guys.
your beautiful book.
Thank
we wish
you.
you well, and we hope you see some of our listeners on book clubs.
Yeah.
Around the world.
Love it.
Take care.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.